Recording. You're ready, whenever you're ready.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and with Productive Muslim. So I'm thrilled this morning to be speaking with my colleague Mohammed Faris, and welcome, Hammoud.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me. Jazakallah khair.
Wa alaikum assalam. So I know who you are, and I know who what Productive Muslim is. And I'm sure a lot of our readers do as well, but I want you to share with us today, who's Mohammed Faris, the man behind Productive Muslim?
Rather not share. No, I'm kidding. Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair. Thank you for having me, and thank you for this platform and sharing stories with people around the world. So Mohammed Faris is a guy who was born in Tanzania, in East Africa. I grew up in Saudi, the UK. I studied Masters in Finance Investment, and I was initially someone who was following the life script to become an Islamic banker. That was my life script. And then in 2007, when a little idea popped in my head by Allah's permission, that said, it would be nice to have a blog called Productive Muslim. I like productivity as a subject, and I like to talk about my faith. So let me combine both of them and see what happens, kind of thing. And that's 2007, and my life has never been the same since then. It's just evolved into this platform, training, coaching platform, helping individuals and teams live the best version of themselves, spiritually, physically, socially. So that's where we are, and that's kind of evolving along the lines with it. I say Productive Muslim is not me. I'm not Productive Muslim, and I'm not definite Abu Productive. People sometimes call me. I'm just somebody who's trying to understand this link and trying to basically live this version of ourselves that is pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the end, basically.
MashaAllah. I can sense the modesty coming through with what you're saying and explaining who you are. I believe that you have a lot of passion in the work that you bring. I follow what you write regularly. And alhamdulillah, I've had the opportunity to talk to you about Productive Muslim. You started to tell us what Productive Muslim is all about. Can you please share with our audience, what is Productive Muslim?
Sure. So Productive Muslim was initially an idea of, I was enthralled with this idea of, productivity as a topic, as a subject. And for me, productivity is about how do you make those choices with your energy, your focus, and your time so that you basically live the best version of yourself, so that you make sure that you are living on basically the best version on all around, spiritually, physical, socially. And then over time, I realized, well, if productivity is about making these choices, I asked myself, I wonder, what does faith, what does spirituality, what does Islam have to offer in terms of teaching us what these choices are, and how these choices with our energy and focus and time help us become the best version of ourselves in this world and hopefully also in the next world. So combining those two topics became almost like an interesting experiment, to be honest, because I wasn't sure where this was going. I didn't start off trying to decode Islam into productivity science, but I just wanted to understand, what is the link? How does the Quran, if I looked at the verse of the Quran and from a productive perspective, if I looked at the Seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was, you can say the most productive man ever lived, because you just look at his accomplishment, there's so much you can benefit. I thought, well, how can I translate that into a way that makes sense to people, both Muslims and non-Muslims, so that it clicks? So they say, yes, this makes sense. This is a way of living that is also a counter narrative to what we're told, what productivity is. Right now, we're told that to be productive, you got to hustle, you got to kill yourself, you got to go out there and work 20 hours a week. Your family is something else, so don't worry about it. Just focus on, getting things done and to-do lists and emails and inbox zero, and this maddening sense of more about being more efficient versus being productive from a holistic perspective. I look at productivity as a holistic topic. It's not just about being productive at work, but how can you be productive at home? How can you be productive with your family? How can you be productive spiritually? These are all different aspects to look at it. And I hope that Productive Muslim is offering, I won't say counter narrative, but hopefully offering a contributing to the world by saying, hey, there's another way of living a productive, meaningful, impactful life that doesn't have to be crazy and rushed and busy and stressful. And this is what we are offering to the world, inshallah.
MashaAllah, powerful message. And I'll tell you why it resonates with me, and I'm sure with a lot of your followers in the West. And I shouldn't just say in the West, because I know some of your clients, and a lot of your client base is also outside of North America. You deal with quite a bit of people in Asia and in Singapore, Malaysia, so different parts of the world, alhamdulillah. So this is great, you're getting the message out there. I think what's conflicting with our lifestyle is we're told, as you say, that in order, excuse me, in order to succeed, we need to hustle. We need to reinvent ourselves every moment and push ourselves out of our limit. It's one thing to go beyond, out of your comfort zone, but it's another thing to kill yourself doing that, right? And when you watch today these coaches and influencers on Instagram and on LinkedIn, what I find particularly discomforting is it doesn't feel natural, right? So there's the two extremes. One is where you bust your butt, excuse the expression, to just hustle and get so much done, and this is productivity, and this is being successful. And the other extreme is all about mindfulness. It's about, relaxing and visioning and seeing something become. And I don't get it. So I struggle because at one point I'm burning the candle at both ends. And at the other extreme, I come before my Lord and I try to find some peace. And it's confusing, it's conflicting. So as a productive Muslim, explain to me how you believe that we can bring these two conflicting or dissonant realities together, and how does Islam help us do that?
Absolutely. The essential crux of this all is what I call, wanting to control, or a sense of control. See, the challenge is that as human beings, as we've become more technologically advanced and become, as we think we're advancing as a human race, we want to control and master every aspect of our life. And to be honest with you, that's why the extreme hustlers are those who actually go to the point of biohacking themselves, where they start taking smart drugs to enhance the way the brain thinks, and eating, and just, go to the super extreme, to almost measure every element of their life and try to maximize it, and to try to, squeeze as much out of themselves. And this idea of control, sometimes I remember a verse in the Quran that just kind of slaps me in the face whenever you have this sense that I'm in control. It's part of human being wanting to be in control. Allah says in the Quran, actually two verses, one after the other. This one really slaps you hard, and it embarrasses you, it slaps you hard. One of them says, and I apologize, this might be some PG-13 topic, أَفَرَأَيْتُمْ مَا تُمْنُونَ أَأَنْتُمْ تَخْلُقُونَ أَمْ نَحْنُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Do you see that semen that you produce, right? Allah is really cornering you, it's embarrassing you. So you see that semen that you produce? Are you one who created it, or are we the creator? It's something as intimate and as personal. You're like, oh no, I think you created that one. And then another, أَفَرَأَيْتُمْ مَا تَحْرُثُونَ أَأَنْتُمْ تَزْرَعُونَ نَحْنُ الزَّارِعُونَ. Do you see that which you see, that you sort of seed that you put on the ground, whether it's, is it you that makes it grow? Are we the grower? So it really just makes you realize, wait a second, who's in control? Who's in charge? Now, someone might look at that, oh, that means, alhamdulillah, Allah's in charge, you should just sit back, relax, do nothing. But remember what Allah says, أَفَرَأَيْتُمْ مَا تَحْرُثُونَ. There is an element of you actually putting the seed in the ground. So the way the example to help you answer the question in terms of balancing, I use the example of a gardener. The gardener is a perfect example of what a believer should be. And there's many hadith that actually refer to the believer as a nakhla, as a palm tree, as a fruit, as a plant, because this is a good example in the sense that, yes, you have to plant the seed. Yes, you have to work hard. Yes, you have to water the garden. Yes, you have to take out the weeds. Yes, you have to break your back on the garden, work all day from sunrise to sunset. But the fruit is not up to you. The outcome is not up to you. A weather could come and just destroy all your crops. Some pest could come and eat all your crops. Some idiot would just drive over your land and just completely crush your crops. The outcome is not up to you. Your role is to plant the seeds, is to work hard, is to have the right intentions, is to really push yourself. But the outcome is up to you. Hustle culture, or the culture of basically saying extreme productivity, says, you know what? I want to basically control the outcome of the seed. I'm going to put genetically modified stuff in my plants to ensure a certain shape and a certain way of fruit comes out. I'm going to pump all this pesticides on my plants so that no one controls every element. And in the end, we have a fruit that looks like a fruit, but in the end, it's not nutritious, it has no barakah in it at all. So this idea of a gardener mindset versus trying to be like, trying to control all the outcome, what I call the carpenter mindset. These are two extremes. Now, the other extreme is someone saying, I'm going to sit outside here, I'm going to, just do nothing and just hope that the land will grow, right? Just going to hope something would happen. And that's the other extreme. But as well, that is also not asked from us in our faith, which in our faith is a very action-based religion, right? Get up and pray. Look at Hajj, it's very action-based faith. It's about taking action, have good intentions, work hard, but the outcome is not up to you. I hope that maybe helps in the clarification of that point, basically.
You're so poetic and you're so on target when you explain, when you put that and when you gave that background. I'll tell you again why this is so powerful to me. In our culture, in Western culture, you're always it's the microcosm. You own the world. The world is at your feet. You're right. There's even some people that would tell us it doesn't matter what other people are doing. You go, you bust, you hustle, you get things done, right? There's nothing humbling in that. There's nothing humbling by looking that the greater world around us still belongs to a greater force, whatever you decide to call that force. And within our culture, within our religion, our belief, we call that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even to non-Muslims, there's something very resonant in this message, the message that you're spreading, because we are saying, look beyond you, look outside of you. You are still the active agent that moves. You are the one that is taking the seed and putting it into the earth and watering it and watching it grow and nurturing it. But you're aware that the seed, in order for it to grow, needs healthy soil, needs sun, needs care, needs water, and that you don't control. So how do you find that equilibrium within the environment in which you live and in which you work, being aware of others, right? I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, people are an extension of Allah. So when we look to what others bring to our environment, we don't control them. We control the seed that we plant. We have to depend on the external environment, the sun, the rain, right? Different people, our work, society, and we have to understand how do we plant a healthy seed and watch it come into fruition. We don't sit back, we're actively engaged. So I think, you mentioned earlier, this is a message for Muslims, and I totally agree. And I think this is why a productive Muslim has been so popular and so successful, alhamdulillah. And I love where you're going with this too. I believe you're starting to have more conversations with non-Muslims, because I believe you are giving them what's currently missing in the dialogue about mindfulness and reflection. What's missing is it's still based on our own intuition. It's still based on who we are and not where we are. And when we look at where we are in comparison to what's around us, mindfulness takes on a different meaning. This is where barakah, I believe, comes in, because in Islam, barakah helps us understand that it's like karma, that there's an action and a reaction. There's something that comes out of what we do. In an Islamic concept, can you help me understand from productive Muslim what barakah means?
Got it. Absolutely. So I look, the way that I explain barakah, and whether you're Muslim or not Muslim, you probably felt this. Imagine, you probably had these moments where you woke up early in the morning one day, and you woke up, you got ready, and you started working on something, and you got so much stuff done in like 1 hour, 2 hours, compared you trying to work on that thing for like 5 hours, the day before, for example. That, what I call the multiply effect, that is called barakah. For example, another barakah example, if you notice this, if you have given charity and you notice almost literally return on investment for your charity, you feel like, hey, that, I give, let's say, good sum in charity, and I feel like there's this, people call blessing, there's this increase that I'm feeling in my life. Where did that come from? That's called barakah. If, for example, if you ever had a situation, especially in college days, or you have like half a slice of pizza and you just decide to share with your friend who's sharing the dorm with you, and you share the half piece of pizza, but you both feel full. You feel like, hey, even though it's half a piece of pizza, I feel full. Normally I can eat a whole pizza on my own, but just because I shared, I feel there's something, I feel filled, I feel full up. That's called barakah. So barakah is defined as the attachment of divine goodness to a thing. So think about I'm trying to think of this water, right? Or food, or your clothes, or your laptop, or anything, or your time, your sleep, your children, your home, anything. And think of it, these are material things, right? These are things, physical things in this world. Now imagine that there is almost this barakah force, or barakah multiplier, which is attachment of divine goodness to this thing. Now, once that attachment happens, something almost like a weird chemical reaction happens. Almost like there's either an increase of benefit from that thing. Suddenly your 1986 Corolla is running fine. Your laptop you use it for so much good. Your children are like a blessing for you and not a stress for you. Your home might be tight and small, but you feel like you live in a palace. At the same time, the opposite is also true. When there's no barakah, right? When there's no barakah, you feel like you can have all the time in the world, the best laptop in the world, the best stuff, the car, lots of children, lots of wealth, lots of big house, but you feel constricted. You feel like something is missing in my life. So barakah is that spiritual attachment to something. Now, this might sound like, wishy-washy or kind of woohoo stuff, but in Islamic tradition, this is actually felt and studied and practiced. And there are very specific ways of tracking barakah. It's not something dodgy or weird or some kind of magic word. Very simple things like wake up early, like give charity, like, be kind to your parents, like seeking forgiveness from God. Like, things like even marriage is considered a source of barakah, prayer, things like being honest in your trade, things like having that trust in God when you go out. These are very tangible things which actually relate to a lot of work that's been done now in leadership and productivity and self-industry. Being grateful, right? These are all sources of barakah that attract barakah in our lives. And there are also, ways to deter barakah from your life by being ungrateful, for example, by hurting others, by not being charitable, right? These are all things that remove barakah in one's life. So think of this barakah as this, I call the secret sauce, right? You can have somebody, and I give an example of barakah. You can have two people write, two identical books, but one of them has so much barakah they last 1,000 years, and one of them just has no barakah that's forgotten completely. And there has been in Islamic history, many examples of that. People who wrote books, probably exact same books at the exact same time, but one of them survived and till today we're benefiting, and others we just don't know who they are even, and they just pass on because there's no barakah in their work. So it's a very powerful, almost I call it rallying cry, for us in our lives, right? People think, look for results, look for, again, hustle culture, maximize output. And I think, what if we focus on maximizing barakah in our lives? How will we approach life differently? How will we do work differently? How will we treat others differently? How will we, start realizing it's not about me, myself, and I, but it's realizing that, if I want to get barakah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that means I got to be more charitable. I got to look for others. I got to help. I got to share what I have. I need to have an abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset, and so on and so forth. So I don't know if that clearly explained the barakah concept, but it's a powerful concept that I feel like this could be the rallying cry that the world needs today. That, enough with the madness, enough with the overwhelm, enough with the stress. Let's all seek a more meaningful barakah lifestyle, basically.
And Hammoud, this sounds like we're talking about ethics, and ethics aren't restricted or just for Muslims. I mean, you said all of us, right? So I think this message is for Muslims as much as it is for non-Muslims, right? And I'm gonna ask you to share a story that you shared with me previously about the adhan. Right, I believe you shared a story about adhan, but then I also want to ask you to take it further, why you believe barakah is equally important for non-Muslims, because the message is universal. So perhaps you could share the story about adhan, and then maybe you could use that as a springboard to why you believe barakah is not just for Muslims.
Sure. So there's been research that was done in Morocco with shopkeepers, and trying to understand with shopkeepers, if does faith or religion influence someone's behavior, or influence someone's sort of way to do things? So what they did, they gave the shopkeepers in Morocco, majority of them were Muslims, gave them some money and said, you can keep it, you can donate some of it, you can donate all of it, whatever you choose to do, it's your money. This is your money to do, right? This is your money to keep. This is your money to do whatever you want with it. And what they did was they gave this money 2 times. Once they gave it outside of prayer time, which was, so let's say between Dhuhr and Asr, between the noon prayer, afternoon prayer, outside of prayer time in general. Now, if you live in a Muslim majority countries, you know that there's this call to prayer that happens 5 times a day. So the second group were given right before the adhan, right before the call to prayer was going ahead. Now, what happened was incredible. This is research based. This is not some weird experiment. This is research based. It said, the majority of people, as soon as they heard the adhan, it just clicked in them, and they gave all that money away for charity. Literally, just something was clicked in them, and they gave all that money to charity. And those who got the money outside of the prayer times did not give as much to charity. Now here's some things that people find uncomfortable. They're like, yeah, but, because we live in a world that, feels uncomfortable about religion in general, right? We feel very uncomfortable about faith, religion. We feel like, we blame religion for the problems around the world. We try to, we kind of think that religion has been the issue of the problem. But here's a powerful, positive example of how faith, religion helps. And this is why it's important, because when the adhan goes off, when the prayer to call comes off, what happens? It's a trigger. Right? If you look at, the habit loop, trigger, routine, reward, it's a trigger that calls on your spiritual side, that calls and says, hey, come to prayer, come to success. So immediately calls on your spiritual side for you to, and the spiritual side wants to give, wants to be a better person for itself. And when I take this message out to Muslims and non-Muslims themselves, I share with them these examples of barakah. A lot of them come to me and say, yes, this makes sense. This clicks. I say it's all about the mindsets, the values, and the rituals. We can agree on the mindsets, we can agree on the values, and the rituals, even things I talk about rituals like such as Islamic prayer and fasting and charity. But many of these rituals, they can practice themselves and experience the power of this ritual and realize this is a way of life. I don't want us to be I don't want to fall into the kind of universalism that, we're all the same and we're all good and all that. No, I want to say that there's something distinctively powerful about this Islamic concept that the world can benefit from. And I don't want to say this is only for Muslims, that only they will benefit from barakah, no one else gets barakah. But again, I want to say this can be, anyone can tap into it. But at the same time, I don't want to take the spiritual element out of it. I don't want to say what makes it unique, take it out of this barakah concept. This is a very spiritual, divine, inspired concept. And let's appreciate it for what it is and tap into it and share with those around us, inshallah.
Well, Mohammed, when you talk about that, to make it easier for myself to understand it, this goes back to the seed that we plant, right? Without understanding the role that the Almighty plays in helping that seed to come into fruition. If we just thought, hey, there's a seed, I'm going to plant it, I'm going to water it, I'm sure the sun will come out eventually, and I'm sure it'll rain if it doesn't, right? So when we don't have that connection with the belief and the faith, right, there's something lacking. And I think that's the power of barakah, is what you're saying. Yes, you can plant that seed. Yes, it will likely grow. Yes, you can write that book. It might have a lasting effect and impact on people. But when it has a message, and the message is powerful and it's spiritual, and that message goes beyond you and I, this message is not only universal and for everyone, but this message is divine. And I think and I just got goosebumps.
Me too.
That I think is the link. It comes back to how it humbles me, puts things in perspective for me, because as I'm rushing, and I'll tell you, I woke up at 2 o'clock last night because I had given clients 3 different wrong dates. And I woke up at night, to reflect, and I'm like, oh my goodness, these dates that I'd given out, these emails, I had to fix things because I realized that I was telling people I'm available when I was not. The clarity came to me. But what it means for me is I'm rushing so much that I'm thinking outside of myself. And when I was able to come and remain focused again, and to find clarity, realize that there's a higher purpose. It's not just about what I want to do. I got that clarity, right? And again, when we're running, when we're hustling, things
you don't have time. You don't have time.
But when you slow down, you pause, you think, you take the time to put that seed into the earth. You think about how it will grow. You will sow the benefits. You reap. What is it? You reap what you sow, or is it the other way around? Right? SubhanAllah.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
So,
and I want to share a story from the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. If you think of Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, and he's in, you know, the Arabian desert, very little resources, you know, if any. His own people kicked him out of the town. He's been persecuted, and he's been told, you are the last messenger to mankind, and basically your job is to, you know, share this message with humanity. Right now, if that's not overwhelming, I was so worried, and if that doesn't make you rush or get stressed or try to be urgent and try to run around and do things, I don't know what will.
We take it for granted as Muslims that he's done this, right? At a time when there was no Facebook, no
Facebook,
LinkedIn,
right?
But he connected with billions of people.
And here's the thing. So the second thought is that when you look in his daily routine, and we did an article on the daily routine of Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, and it's like, you look at that daily routine, like, it doesn't look stressed. It doesn't look rushed. It's focused, it's present, it's divine, it's spiritual, but it's also, you know, he has got family, he's got kids, he's got grandkids, he's got, you know, companions, he's got to go to funerals and go to help with someone, and he's got to go and basically and feeds his family, and he used to, you know, tie his own shoelaces and fix his own clothes. I mean, someone who's as busy as him, you'd think that he'd have like an entourage around him trying to make sure his life is easy, but he's literally in the moment. I'm just baffled. Literally, I'm like, I look at that, I'm thinking, how did he achieve what he achieved in 100 years with no market in 1,000 years? You know, 1.8 billion followers today. Forget, you know, all those who passed before till this time. An incredible, you know, history. I mean, and if you look at it, it's not like he was hustling, right? In the sense of the hustle where you understand it. I mean, it literally boggles my mind. I feel like if we have a model of productivity, or a model of if being the best version of yourself that lives with barakah, and if you want to see what barakah is or impact is, then understanding the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, is the first step. And for anyone who's non-Muslim, I really call this on to you. Forget all the, you know, don't look at all what's said out there. Just pick up a biography of the Prophet written by a Muslim, because don't give all this Orientalist work, written by a Muslim, and just read it. Read it as the first time you get to know a person who is the most influential man in history. You might disagree with him, you might not like his message, but he is successful in both the worldly sense and spiritual sense. It's worth understanding, how did this man achieve it? How did it work? You know, what can we learn? It's powerful. And this is one thing that just boggles my mind. Until today, I'm still trying to even understand a hint of how that works.
So Productive Muslim is the company, and you have coaching, leadership coaching. You have a retreat that you do annually. I believe is it in Singapore or Malaysia? Indonesia. Thank you. And I'm later we can tell our audience more about this and how they can learn more about it and get in touch with you. Barakah is something new that you've come out with, I believe, right? And it's, again, you've really helped clarify how Barakah is just not the next mindfulness, the next reflection, right? The next big thing, fad that will be forgotten in a couple of years. Barakah has been around for many years, right? And I want to say, historically, it's been around maybe even before Islam, but through the actual existence of our Prophet, peace and blessings upon him, it became defined. And I think as Muslims, we have not held on to that love, that amazing barakah throughout the years. So I thank you for starting the conversations again. And I thank you for taking it further outside of our communities, because there is power in barakah in corporate environments, right? You know, the power is not only changing you, changing the environments through what you do. And I think that's powerful. So what is next for Barakah? What is next for Productive Muslim?
Sure, absolutely. So I want to touch on two parts. One is, you mentioned this idea of Barakah in the corporate environment. I want to share a very specific example of that. There's a company, a fried chicken company actually in Saudi Arabia that sells, you know, normal fried chicken. So those of you might know it, went to Hajj or Makkah, it's called Al-Baik, right? It's a very famous fried chicken company, kind of beats KFC any day when you go to Saudi. And one of the son of the founder of Al-Baik gave a talk in Dubai last few months ago, where he shared, you know, just how he lived with Barakah and the results he got. So this is a real result, ROI for Barakah. He said that in 2000, a few years back, he struggled because food prices were increasing. So the natural thing to do, if you bring in a McKinsey or BCG or any consultant, well, food prices increasing, the natural thing to do is to pass those prices to the consumer, increase the price of your fried chicken. So he said the founder, and there were two brothers. One of the brothers, one day he was outside a big restaurant and he saw a very poor family, but with lots of children. A very poor family, had lots of children. And this father was carrying all this al-bake, food, fried chicken to his family in the car. And he said, you know what, I'm not increasing the prices. And I'm like, why? He goes, I feel like this restaurant is an amana. Amana means it's a trust. So, and by the way, amana is one of the ways to attract barakah. This is a trust. God trusted me with this restaurant. This poor family is able to buy food enough to feed his children because we are able to maintain our prices pretty low. If we increase our prices, where will they go eat? What will they eat for their kids? How will they get good food for their kids? And they basically said, I will not increase prices. And then here's what he did. He turned to his employees and he said, you know what? I know that you guys are struggling because food prices are increasing, the cost of living is increasing. So guess what? We're giving you a salary increase and 2 months bonus. Now, you think, what? Any McKinsey, BCG was like, you are mad. This does not make any business sense. You are just mad. But guess what? The company is thriving. Brand loyalty has gone through the roof. Barakah, the attraction people get towards al-bake. I mean, it's funny, you can see al-bake and KFC right next to each other. KFC is empty. Al-bake is packed 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, that tells you the power of barakah. This is not some, again, wishy-washy stuff or stuff that's on a personal level. This stuff is applicable to companies, to organizations, to individuals, to teams, to nations. It's just a matter of us filtering it and practicing, basically. So for us, honestly, and this is why we take a conversation before, and I'm saying us because I want, Mohammed Hammoud is someone I actually want to work with here right now, and from Barakah Muslims, really take this conversation further and say, well, what is barakah in terms of how can we talk about barakah? So we're right now talking about writing, first of all, defining this concept through a book that will hopefully explain barakah in more detail. Secondly, to do more training material, to do more courses, and to understand what is to measure, way to measure barakah in your life and how to do assessments around barakah. And then talk about almost codify it into skills and behaviors. So it does not become this, sometimes people think, oh yeah, it's some kind of nice kumbaya thing that we're going to hear about. So this is where we're heading with this. And it's still the beginning of the journey. And honestly, I don't want to say I'm an expert in barakah. I honestly want to co-create this with yourself, with others who are interested in this topic. So anyone out there who feels that they have a story, they have experienced barakah, they felt like there's something out there that we need to be shared in terms of barakah, I'm more than happy to work with them, to listen to them, to explore further, because this is a journey that the world needs, and it'll take an entire generation of people to develop and practice and to see the result, inshallah.
MashaAllah. This is exciting. And I think the difference between what may have worked or not worked in the past is where we are with social media and where just the world, we're a smaller world, right? Everybody's connected. Everybody's LinkedIn. Everybody's, liking what everybody else is doing, right? So there's exposure and there's an opportunity for you to take this message, right? So I want to encourage our audience and our readers. We're going to share some links to Productive Muslim. I want to share links to your TED Talk that you had a few years ago. I know that you speak consistently on this. And so I want people to know who Mohammed is. I want people to know who Productive Muslim is. I want people to feel the barakah that you're emanating. So barakallah feek. The other thing is, I know you're working on a book, but what is one of your favorite books that you've read that has made a change in your life?
Trying to think, one that comes to my head right now, of course, many books have impacted me. One book that is a very small book, it's called actually Contemplation by Professor Malik Badri. And he writes very eloquently about, we all know meditation, right? The idea of meditation, mindfulness. And he goes, actually, beyond that, there's something called contemplation, where it's not about meditation in the sense of just, getting the zen and feeling like getting some kind of nirvana moment. It's where you start contemplating on where you are, where you're heading, your spiritual connection to God, the hereafter focus. And I felt it was almost like the next upgrade to meditation. And I felt that was almost like a push for me to realize that there are certain conversations we can have that's beyond what we've been taught in the productivity, self-help industry. And for example, he did really well with contemplation, and I'm hoping that to do the same in terms of productivity and barakah, inshallah.
And Mohammed, I think it's so important to call out something that you mentioned. And again, I know every time I talk to you, I'm not undermining how important this project is for Muslims and an Islamic audience. But hands down, this is a message definitely that thing can have great impact for our Muslim communities everywhere.
Mhm.
I'm always pushing us, you and I, to talk about how this can have an equally impactful effect on non-Muslims as well. And I know that this is something you're already working on because you're collaborating with and through interfaith dialogue with other people in the community, academics, business owners. So before we wrap up, can you please share a bit of that and why, again, this Barakah movement and the community, the dialogue about Barakah is very, very important, timely, and universal.
Absolutely. I mean, I honestly believe that the message of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is to be a rahma al-alamin, to be a mercy for all, right? And if we're, especially for us living in the West and living in society where, you know, a lot of times the discussion with Islam and Muslims has been cornered into certain topics, right? Security, immigration, terrorism, blah, 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 we've been put in that corner. And I'm thinking there's a whole world out there of how Islam and Muslims can contribute to improve and help and be a mercy to all those around us and to support. And it's not in a patronizing way or in a way that, oh, we are better, you guys are not. In a way that we're collaborating to uplift all of us. I mean, if we start adopting as a society, American society, Canadian society, the mindsets, the values, the rituals that help us live a more barakah life, I mean, just imagine what would this mean to the success of this nation, the success of the world, just by being able to live like this. So I honestly feel, and this is why we started doing interfaith work, where I work with universities, maybe you know, some of the more religious universities, as well as organizations that have talked about religious freedom in businesses. And we're having discussions with them and meetings with companies like Texas Instruments, like, for example, you know, there are some companies like American Airlines, like the Harvard University, McAfee University, where they're starting this discussion saying, okay, how can we harness faith, spirituality, so that it can be a positive force in the work environment? And that's kind of the angle I'm going on with it, basically. And we're going to take this further, and we want to take this further. I want to share that. Alhamdulillah, everyone I've spoken to, everyone we've had discussion where they're like, hey, this makes sense, this clicks, this makes sense. And if you just remove, I always tell you, if you just remove the filter of what you think you know about Islam, what you think you know about Prophet Muhammad, what you think you know about Muslims, and just listen with your heart and listen with your mind and listen with it, clicks, it'll make sense. And you're like, you know what, I need some of the Barakah stuff. And just as funny aside, I gave an activity for, when I gave that talk on Barakah, I said to people, hey, make sure you go out today and share a meal, like literally break a sandwich or break a pizza with somebody, share a meal, feel the Barakah. And someone messaged me later saying, hey man, I just shared a sandwich and a glass of wine with my friend. Does that count as Barakah? And I was like, oh,
Kind of.
oh, but kind of, you know, it's, you know, Muslims don't drink, so like, oh, sure. But yeah, but this is where sometimes you just have to share the message, and how people practice it is up to them. But again, it's very important that we can deliver this message and make it reality for people.
And Hammoud, delivering and making it reality is something I know you're doing well already. So Barakallah Feek. Just speaking with you, I can feel the barakah. You get me all excited, and you know what's next. And so I look forward to Practical Muslim, continuing conversations with Productive Muslim. I think what we're doing is we're trying to, for the Muslim community, show that we're not that different than the people that we live around, right? And we're trying to give a framework within Islamic values of how we believe you can tap into the energies and the resources that God subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided us, right? So don't burn yourself hustling. Don't try to sell your soul and trying to get what's not, you know, divinely inspired for you. And don't sit there and wait for somebody to do something to you or for you. Wow. Move, strive. You know,
I love, you know, it's a fil haraka al barakah, right? In haraka,
it is.
Movement is barakah.
And the more haraka, the more barakah. It's that balance, right? And, you know, this is a great message. I look forward to continue conversations. And we're going to share some links after. I'll post some links where people can learn more about Productive Muslim, about barakah, about the upcoming retreat, about you. And this is just the first of many conversations, inshallah, because there's even barakah in having this discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And I really, really wish you all barakah success. I was listening. And talk to you soon.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.